All right, welcome back. Okay, I hope yesterday was an interesting day for you. I just want to step back and look at something that I did. It's a Venn diagram I did during the day yesterday, or actually during the day on Tuesday. So I didn't get a chance to include this in your video lecture for yesterday. This, going back to Tuesday when you read Arius's letter to Eusebius, this is a Venn diagram showing the agreement and disagreement between Arius and his bishop, Alexander. Alexander is going to be making a comeback today. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify the issue here. They both agree that Jesus is the Son of God, united with human nature, with a human nature. Okay, so in other words, Jesus is fully human, at least in theory, for Arius, and he is the union between the Son of God and that human being, that human nature. Jesus began to exist at a certain point in time, his Annunciation, which is when the angel Gabriel visited Mary. She consents to bear Jesus. Jesus as this union between the Son of God and human nature begins to exist at that point in time in history. But they both agree, too, the Son existed before Jesus. So the Son of God existed before the creation of the world. Okay. All right. So we have to establish that. They both agree that God the Father has no beginning as well. So the point of disagreement between Alexander and Arius is only about whether or not the Son began to exist. In other words, there was a time when the Son was not, as Arius is teaching, or if the Son is eternally begotten and has no beginning, like the Father. That's what Alexander taught. So if Alexander is right, then the Son is equal to the Father. Both share the same divine nature and same divine substance. According to Arius, okay, he says there was a time when the Son was not, therefore the Son is not equal to the Father. He does not have the same divine nature or divine substance. And the takeaway then is for Alexander, Jesus is fully human and also fully divine. For Arius, Jesus is fully human but not fully divine. Actually, Arius isn't clear on the humanity part either necessarily, but he's not fully divine. Okay. And then yesterday you read on the incarnation, and you did the exercise of highlighting the main ideas. And so we saw Athanasius prove why Jesus had to be fully human and fully divine. Otherwise, his death and resurrection were not salvific. We are not redeemed, essentially. Okay. All right. So I put that before the section on Athanasius. So in class, we talked about that yesterday. Today, we're moving on to talk about two ecumenical councils which condemned Arius. Okay. Nicea and Constantinople. These are the first two ecumenical councils in the church's history. So let's dig in here. So you recall from Monday that the Arian controversy actually caused rioting and a lot of division within the Roman Empire itself. So Emperor Constantine felt that he had to intervene in order to reestablish peace within the Roman Empire. Okay, so it's actually Constantine who calls the bishops together for a council in Nicea, which is in modern-day Turkey. This is not too far east of Constantinople. In 325, he calls the bishops together and says, look, we got to hash this out, okay? So Alexander, who is the bishop of Alexandria, where Arius and Athanasius were both living. So Athanasius was a deacon of Alexander's. Arius had been one of Alexander's priests. So Alexander brings Athanasius with him as kind of his chief theologian to the council, and he leads the council in condemning Arius's teaching. Okay. The council then, to condemn Arius, produces this creed, which is a profession of faith, affirming that God the Son is consubstantial with the Father, okay, or the Son of God is consubstantial, of course, meaning of the same substance, divine substance as the Father. And so this is the church's first ecumenical council. This produces the first version of what we call the Nicene Creed, okay? All right, so this is the original creed. What I want you to do with that Google form that I posted, I want you to read through this and identify and then type out 3 passages in this that directly condemn Arius' teaching. All right, so go ahead and pause the video right now, read through it, and type out 3 passages that condemn Arius. Okay, let's continue. So here in bold are certain passages that are directed right at him. Okay, so it talks about the Son of God, the only begotten, begotten of the Father, that is, of the substance of the Father. Okay, so there it's affirming the Son and God the Father are made of the same divine substance. They're made of the same stuff. There again, you see it. Begotten, not made, of the same substance as the Father. Okay. And then further down, but those who say there was a time when he was not, that is, those who say there was a time when the Son was not, or that the Son of God is created, or subject to change or alteration, the Catholic Church anathematizes. In other words, condemns. Okay. So you can see how the wording of the Nicene Creed, yes, it professes what the Church has always believed, but it does so in a way that is explicitly aimed at condemning what Arius was teaching. Okay. This is going to have an important consequence for when we talk on Monday about how the church's teaching develops. Okay. All right, so that's the original Nicene Creed. All right. After Nicaea in 325, the Arian controversy continues, and at one point, it looked like the majority of the church actually believed what Arius believed, even after the Council of Nicaea condemned that teaching. Okay, so the controversy continues. Bishops who did not agree with Nicaea claimed that Nicaea was not a legitimate council, so we don't have to profess that creed. St. Athanasius is the main defender of the council. This is the period of time when he starts to get condemned and exiled by the emperor. Okay, he's the strongest opponent of Arius at this point. All right, but since Nicaea didn't completely settle the controversy, Theodosius the Great, who's emperor at this time, he then calls a second council in Constantinople in 381. Okay, again, calling together the bishops and saying, look, let's settle this again. So that council in Constantinople reaffirms the creed from Nicaea, and it modifies it in order to do a couple of things. Number one, make Jesus' divinity even clearer. Okay, because what some people who agreed with Arius were doing is saying, yeah, we agree with the Nicene Creed, but we interpret it in a different way. And so they would take what the Nicene Creed said and interpret it, twist it, so that it actually meant what Arius meant, which is the opposite of what the council meant. Okay, so Constantinople says, let's make the creed even clearer. All right, and then it adds all the stuff about the Holy Spirit, because if you notice, that original Nicene Creed says nothing except, and we believe in the Holy Spirit. Okay, there's another controversy going on at this time about whether or not the Holy Spirit is a divine person. Okay, so it affirms the divinity of the Holy Spirit. This is going to produce a modified form of that Nicene Creed, which is technically known as the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. And that's the one we recite at Mass every Sunday. Okay, so let's take a look at that creed. So what I want you to do now is pause the video, read through this, and identify 3 passages and write down those 3 passages that show modifications from what the original version of the Nicene Creed said. In other words, tell me where Constantinople changed the original creed. Okay, so pause the video, go do that. All right, welcome back. Okay, so again, I've boldened some of the passages here. So a little bit of addition here, maker of heaven and earth, describing God the Father. Then refers to Christ as the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father before all ages. Okay, God from God, light from light. Consubstantial with the Father. Again, we see that in there. It adds some historical things in here. Okay, so it says, now that Jesus was incarnate by the Virgin Mary and became man, he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and he suffered death and was buried, rose again on the 3rd day in accordance with the Scriptures, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. Okay, so it's affirming more explicit detail about the life of Jesus. Okay. All right. This is going to come in, be important later on as controversy continues. Seated at the right hand of the Father, his kingdom will have no end. And then all this stuff about the Holy Spirit, like I said, the Holy Spirit being the Lord and giver of life, who proceeds from the Father, who with the Father is adored and glorified. So here's saying, again, the Holy Spirit is fully divine. And then all this stuff about the church as well. One Holy Catholic Apostolic Church, baptism, resurrection of the dead, and so on. So modifications, clarifications, and additions. Okay. But that's basically the form we recite now, with one exception. The original creed does not say that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. That's a separate conversation for a separate time. Okay, so that's that creed. Now to wrap this up, okay, Arianism gradually goes away after the Council of Constantinople, but it would take a couple centuries beyond that. Okay, so it doesn't go away right away. But other false teachings about Jesus pop up. So Nestorius teaches that the human Jesus and the divine Son of God are actually two separate persons in some sense. Okay, so they're not the same. So the human Jesus died, but not the divine Son of God. Okay, monophysitism teaches that this is one nature. So Jesus' humanity actually is swallowed up in his divinity. So he's not fully human. He's like this one combined nature of like divinized humanity. Monothelitism is one will. So saying that Jesus has a divine will but not a human will. And of course, this means that if he doesn't have a normal human will, then he's not fully human, because that's something that we have by virtue of being human beings. Okay. All of these run into the same problem as Arianism. If they're true, then Jesus' death and resurrection would not save us. If Nestorius is right, then the divine Son of God did not experience death, which means that the law of death is not satisfied for every and all human beings. Okay? If monophysitism is correct, then he's not fully human, which means that the law of death is not fulfilled because it's not a human death. Okay? And if monothelitism is true, again, Jesus is not fully human, therefore the law of death, which demands that a human being or human beings suffer death, has not been fulfilled. Okay, so these all get condemned by ecumenical councils as well. All right, so that's where we're leaving off for this week. Next week, we will wrap this up, talk a little bit about the development of doctrine. Then on Tuesday, we'll have a quiz, standard quiz, not written or anything. And that will go on quarter 2. That'll be the first grade probably of quarter 2. All right, let me know if you've got any questions. I hope this all made sense. Thanks.